The fourth edition of the Economic Times Global Sustainability Alliance SDG Summit was held recently to honor and recognize the grit and determination of the industry stalwarts towards sustainable economic development. The summit was flagged off by Namrata Rana, Director Strategy and Brand, Futurescape, India Ambassador of University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainable Leadership.
So how is it that we are here talking about sustainability when every action of ours, every single thing that we do, every step that we take is also about carbon emissions? And that, friends, is what is about to change in the next few years. So at one level, we are in the biggest transformative shift of our times. The way we eat is going to change. We're going to talk about different kinds of foods that are more resistant to climate change. The way we travel is going to change. We will be traveling in different kinds of cars. Maybe we won't even own a car in the next few years, and we will be part of the sharing economy. The kind of homes that we have, the kind of cooling that we have, the kind of energy systems that we have, the kind of electrical grid that we have, every single thing all around us is being reimagined as we speak. And that's one of the fundamental reasons why Futurescape has brought about this climate leadership report. And this is in continuation of 9 years of our work. And every single year for 9 years, we've taken out a leadership rankings of India's top companies that focuses on sustainability. And the reason for that was that we wanted to study what organizations actually do. What do they report on? What do they say? And are they really serious when they talk about sustainability? That's the reason why we focused on India's top companies every year and brought about this ranking. Over time, the rankings have shifted. When I say shifted, meaning that the methodology has gone from studying sustainability, it's gone from studying CSR, it's gone towards ESG. And this year, we've sharpened our focus and focused solely on climate leadership.
After an invigorating speech by Namrata Rana, Suman Berry, Vice Chairperson Niti Aayog, also presented his views. Let's have a look.
The architecture of the Sustainable Development Goals is complicated. It is a set of goals for the whole world, Agenda 2030, which is assessed from time to time, every year in fact, to see how much progress is being made. It is, if you like, a global consensus on what we mean by sustainable development. But then India, led by Niti Aayog, or led by the Prime Minister with the agency of Niti Aayog, has developed a very elaborate machinery for consultation on the Sustainable Development Goals, the creation of data-driven dashboards at the national level.
The event started with a thought-provoking panel discussion on the topic, Transformation as the Key Agenda for Championing the Next Phase of Business Sustainability. Here are some highlights.
Sustainable Development Goals has been in existence since 2015. It's a set of objectives to be achieved by 2030. It is for all the nations and the government. So there are 17 of them. They are categorized across environmental, social, and economic categories. So the idea is you meet the environmental objectives, social objectives, and through that you achieve economic objectives. Right? So by being good, by being equitable, developing better human relations, fostering diversity and inclusion, and emitting less carbon, you become, you create economic value. You become more profitable, right? So that is in the middle of, the transformation agenda. When you talk about transformation, you want to achieve better profits, you want to transform your business, simplify your business, improve revenues, and so on. So the way these SDGs are designed seems to be in those lines. We also have ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance objectives. These are a set of criteria that investors use to decide on where they're going to invest.
confluence of 3 or 4 different sort of events and factors. Number one, on the demand side, I think there is a greater level of awareness and understanding about what the implications of our consumer level choices actually mean and the impact that it is having on the climate and the environment around us. And in that context, COVID may have given us a little bit of a window as to what that looks like, because once we shut down everything, it's only then we saw the climate response back and the natural response back, which of course we all had, pictures flying around about, how the nature has responded backwards. And I think that awareness has continued to grow. So that's, the first sort of factor that's there. I think the second factor that's quite important is that the technological process that has occurred over the last, couple of decades has allowed for credible alternatives to be developed and economical alternatives to be developed, much in the way that renewable energy really in the last 5 or 6 years has come down the price curve to a point where it is a clear alternative and a economically beneficial alternative to our choices.
Obesity costs in India is 2.8 lakh crores. The disease related to obesity is costing us that much, which is probably about 1% of our GDP, because with obesity comes all other ailments. You start with diabetes, it goes to hypertension, so on and so forth. I'm flagging this because then the health and wellness, the societal impact of staying well and staying healthy has just huge impact, whether it's within our own system or within, all industrialists, all industries.
There are various technologies that are enabling sustainability: cloud, data and AI, analytics, blockchain. All these are various technologies that I can think of, and there are many more, even IoT for that matter, in enabling sustainability. So let me talk about a few. Cloud is one area where you can actually move the workloads and run the workloads based on the need. So you don't need to have fixed capacity of a data center and the associated energy consumption, right? So you can go green by just shifting your workloads to cloud. The other is data and analytics. Sustainability or recycling or green energy is an ecosystem play. You have to influence the parties across various supply chain. For that, you need to bring data from various sources across supply chain, integrate it, put it in a data lake, data warehouse, and derive insights out of it, and use those insights to drive the right action on the ground. So data, analytics, technologies are useful, and AI is useful for predicting the right outcomes and taking the right action.
Today, we are all feeling the impact of climate change. Whether we like it or not, we are going through certain catastrophe kind of conditions, whether it is a drought or flood. We are experiencing it in many cities. The recent one was in Bangalore, right? And we have experienced this in Chennai, in Mumbai, every city. And the reason is global warming and climate change, and buildings, which is a core of real estate, account for more than 40% of the global emissions. So we have to act now. Jones Lang LaSalle, as an organization, we walk the talk. We ourselves have set a net zero goal by 2040 with an intermittent goal of reducing it by half by 2030. That does not involve only our emissions, which is scope 1 and scope 2, they call it as the scope 3 emissions, the emissions of the spaces that we manage, the buildings that we lease, all that we have committed to make it net zero by 2040, which is a very, very ambitious thing, and we are committed to doing that in a positive way. We have already drawn out the pathway how to reach there. We are working on the operational carbon, we are working on embodied carbon of not only our spaces but also the client spaces, and we have formed collaborations with Tata Power. We are also formed a Build Ahead coalition with Zintio, which addresses about embodied carbon. So we are on the right track, and we are working with various clients, from the occupier clients, from the landlord side, and the investor clients. Without all those partnerships, it's not going to happen achieving net zero. So we are on the right track at this point.
The event was followed by an interesting panel discussion on the topic Reconciling Opportunities and Challenges of Climate Resilient Development.
We need to encourage ourselves to devote our attention towards exploring that area. And we have launched a project also where we would like to include India, if it comes to the interest, to be part of that call on prices that we're going to make. It's going to be practically a project of around from $1 to $3 billion.
What we did with the Indian side in May this year was convening ourselves, the two sides, to a new partnership for green and sustainable development. And that's a partnership that is, you can put down impressive numbers, at least by German standard. We will have $10 billion over the next 8 years. But it's first and foremost a partnership that should lead to a common understanding how we really can do more in this.
I guess number one, you need a plan for how you're going to cut emissions. The good news is we've got a plan. You've got and it's no good one country having a plan. You need a global plan. But you have it. You have the ambition set up by Prime Minister Modi and many others in Glasgow in November of last year. And you need to deliver that plan. I mean, the UK, absolutely not alone in this group, but we've cut our emissions by about 50% compared to 1990 while growing our economy by 70%. Most of our economies now show how you can grow quite well and cut your emissions at the same time. It's perfectly possible.
Next in line was a thought-provoking panel discussion on the topic, embedding circularity into business strategy and operations. Here are some highlights.
We look at it in terms of 4 pillars. The first of which we call nurturing terroir. Now, terroir is the land from where our product comes from. I mean, often it's missed by people that our product comes from agriculture, and our product takes on the qualities of the land from which it comes from. So therefore, for us, looking after the land and the terroir from which our product comes from ensures the quality of our current products, but also ensures that the raw materials are available for the future. The second pillar we look at is people, valuing people. We see ourselves as creators of conviviality, of inspiring the human connection, and people are a very important part of our business, right? And therefore, valuing people, whether it's in terms of diversity or gender balance or any other ways, is an important factor. The third bit is what we are here to talk about, which is circular making, right? And this again goes back to the idea of looking at the entire life cycle and also really recognizing that we live in a world of finite resources. One of the ways I simplify it for myself is that I look at 3 areas, which is a commitment, technology, and innovation. And as a step 1 is commitment, right? And as companies, if we commit to looking at how do we start to reduce our carbon emission footprint, that's step 1. And then technology comes into play, where we start to look at, in the case of Pernod Ricard, for instance, we look at a full life cycle approach to understanding our carbon emission footprint. And we look at circular making is a big part of how we look at it as well. And that is the technological bit on understanding the exact impact of our business operations.
Sustainable Future for All was the next topic for an interesting panel discussion where the speakers gave an insight on the future of sustainability.
Within our organization also, we have made our net zero by 2050. We have put our goals over there. But then we have also set our goals around 2025, that within our organization, what we are doing, and externally for our customers, what we are doing. So if I talk about within our organization, 2025, there are goals which we have set for ourselves, being a global company, who is providing, I would say, almost 5 devices every second across 180 countries from 35 manufacturing units. So it's important for us that the kind of energy consumption, which we are doing across the globe. So we have set our goals that by 2025, the 90% of the energy consumption has to happen through renewable energy. So that is one goal which we have set for ourselves. The second big goal which we have set for ourselves by 2025 is that close to 75% of our spares, since we are the largest manufacturer of devices, especially the laptops and the tablet, we are saying that by 2025, 75% of our spares would be recycled.
On the sustainability, as Lenovo, we are doing 2 things. One is internal and another one is external. So let me first talk about what we are doing internally. So internally we have set our goals for net zero by 2050, wherein the first milestone is that by 2025, we are trying to do 2 things. One, by 2025, that 90% of the energy which we are consuming in our manufacturing plant needs to be secured from the renewable resources. The second one is the 76% of our spare parts which are getting used in our devices needs to be recycled, meaning that those spare parts needs to be reused. One more element, which as an organization which we are trying to bring is that most of our laptops over a period of time needs to be manufactured from the recycled material. Externally for our customers, because when we are engaging with our customers, especially in the enterprise space, customers are basically in the current scheme of things are building up their sustainable targets. And we see that we as an IT organization, we can add a lot of value. And I'm personally very proud that in India, we are the first PC manufacturer where we have started bundling CO2 offset points along with our devices. So basically this helps our customers to meet their sustainable goal at the time of buying devices only. And these CO2 offset points take care of the complete CO2 emission which is being consumed for the complete life cycle of the laptop. Second, we are also helping our customers to give them a services which we are calling it ARS, which is Asset Recovery Services. So Asset Recovery Services is nothing but adding more value to the old devices which customers are using. So let's say customers are using these devices for 5 years. After 5 years, we are telling customers under this ARS services, give back those devices to us. Either we will reuse those devices if the life is still left out of those devices, or we will take back those devices and then we will use the material of those devices to manufacture our new laptops.
In line, the event was followed by thought-provoking discussions on the topic Smart Nations, Sustain, Innovate, Accelerate. Here are some highlights.
If we look at India vis-a-vis the world, our CO2 per capita emissions in terms of tons are at 1.74, which is 38% of the world's average. If we compare with other countries, say USA, it is 13.68 tons, which is 296% of the world's average. European Union at 5.91 tons is at 128% of the world average. China at 8.2 tons is at 177% of the global average. And Saudi Arabia at 16.96 is at 367% of the global average. It shows that India's emissions are the lowest in G20.
Currently, in terms of water uses, what we are looking at is becoming a water positive airport in the next 1 to 2 years. In fact, that is done by a host of different measures. One of the measures is putting up the recharge wells. We have already got about 300. We are looking at putting up another 320. There is 9 million liters of storage that we have created. So with this, we will have close to about 106% of our capacity to recharge the groundwater as compared to the actual fresh water that we are using. Similarly, in terms of getting water available, clean water available to the passengers as well as the other stakeholders who are working at the airport, we have got advanced water treatment plant which makes sure that clean water is available for their uses.
In line, the event was followed by a thought-provoking panel discussion on the topic Sustainable Finance, Building Collaborations and Partnerships.
There is very little conflict in our view between renewables or energy transition and what is required by environment, governments, corporates. I mean, we've seen the energy volatility across the world right now. Renewables is a very elegant solution simply because it's cheaper. When you turn on, you don't need molecules to service them in terms of input costs, so there is no variability on input costs. It just makes economic sense, it's good for the environment, governments and corporates are asking for it. So I'm not sure that there is that conflict as far as renewables or energy transition is concerned. As far as the reporting of it is concerned, that's an evolution. It's happening. There are various standards and forums that have been sort of discussed, being put into place, and it will over time evolve into what eventually investors and other users of these reports are sort of looking for in terms of data.
The time has come where the investors, in terms of having investing knowledge, they have to also think about, they have to take a holistic view in terms of techno-commercial, that what are the risks involved into that, what is the level of technical readiness level of the technologies we have, and what is the basically time it is going to take to the maturity. So that is where I think they have to focus on. From the government perspective, they have got a big role to play in terms of really handhold with the corporate like us to basically go for the viability gap funding, because all these technologies are coming, they are not coming economical at this point of time, right? All the ROIs or the payback which have to be 2 to 3 years, it is like 6 to 7 odd years, right? So that is where I think government can play a huge role in terms of participating, in terms of launching so many pilot scale projects where I think each corporate can participate based on their subject matter expertise, based on their liking and their efficiencies.
If you look at India's economy, we are already, I'd say, in the top 5 in the world. Going forward, our aspiration is to be in the top 3 or even the top 2 in the world. And clearly, energy is a critical enabler to making that happen. As we go forward, the way I look at India's energy matrix is for it to predominantly be growth in renewables and the non-renewables being gradually phased out. Initially, they are going to provide a critical role in terms of balancing the grid and providing, as needed power, dispatchable power. But with the growth in new technologies, in round-the-clock, in storage, in green hydrogen, and so on, I expect even that role of conventional fuel-based power generation to be phased out, and renewable really to be the only source of energy generation in India going forward. I don't think status quo might be the right term or the phrase to describe renewable energy in India. It's a highly dynamic sector that's shown quite incredible growth over the last decade, and we expect that to continue, if not accelerate, over the next few decades. As we think about the energy needs of India, and growing the energy needs, almost doubling it in the next, let's say, 15 to 20 years, I believe renewable energy will be the bulk of new capacity that comes online. So when you think of status quo, you think of stagnation. I actually think of it as growth and dynamism, not status quo.
India is the third largest energy consumer, with 1/3 per capita energy consumption, 1/3 global per capita consumption. And with the socio-economic development what we have huge opportunity to grow and change our consumption paths towards a green. Given the backdrop of Indian energy market being in $200 billion, of which 18% is electricity market, and renewable market is close to 4 billion, which translates to 2% of the whole energy basket. Out of 200 billion, 125 billion to 140 billion is imported as a fossil fuels, which have been used into our energy cycles. We have a great opportunity today with the virtue of technology and market demands towards the decarbon, which will enable towards the renewables towards participating into the main core sectors. To achieve this decarbonized journey or a cleaner energy journey, we strongly believe renewables, storage, and the circular economy is a path to go forward.
I think the first thing we need to do is make sure that we use technology and advanced technology in businesses. For example, using technology in businesses like agriculture, for example, use of drones can significantly improve the effectiveness and efficiency of businesses across the value chain and across businesses, whether it's supply chain or industries like agriculture, manufacturing, etc. I think the second thing that we need to do is use data to prioritize our actions. The SDG index that the government has made is a fantastic starting point to make sure that we know where we need to focus on, whether we need to focus on climate action or we need to focus on water or poverty at a district level. And I think that's a phenomenal starting point for us to prioritize the set of actions.
The 4th edition of the Economic Times Global Sustainability Alliance SDG Summit culminated on high-voltage discussions, pride and a sense of achievement. Though the curtains on the show had drowned, but the search for excellence by the Times Group will go on.